already aware of the great deceit, then 1. If you are already aware of the great deceit, then read the following lines carefully, because you will find here some clues to be followed along the returning path to origin. 2. The secret, in sum, lies in knowing the extraterrestrial origin of the human spirit and acquiring enough wisdom to return to that origin, finally leaving forever the insane universe of matter and energy, the insane universe of the created forms. 3. Men coming from a total and frightful war. From an essential war that had began long before, in the extraterrestrial origin of human spirit, and that have not ended yet. 4. The essential war is a clash among gods, a conflict that started in heaven and spread to earth, involving men in the process. 5. The ultimate wisdom would coincide with the strongest will of returning to the origin, with the major orientation towards the origin, with the highest courage determined to fight against the powers of matter, and with the maximum spiritual hostility towards the non-spiritual. 6. Before the fall of the extraterrestrial spirit into the matter, there was an extremely primitive man-animal on Earth, son of God, the creator of all material forms. Such man-animal had an animic essence, that is to say, a soul that could reach immortality, but lacked eternal spirit. 7. After performing the mystery of the fall, the spirit ended up inside the man-animal as a prisoner of the matter, and that is how the need for its liberation emerged. 8. To understand the sign of the origin, it was needed exactly 13 plus 3 runners, namely, an alphabet of 16 signs called runners or varunners. 9. The highest priestly holiness, the one that was expressed by the control of the soul conceived either as a body or as a force, also meant the most abject submission to the powers of matter. 10. In the origin, beyond the stars, there was an uncreated light that could only be seen by the spirit. That infinite light was imperceptible to the soul. However, though invisible, in front of that infinite light, the soul felt as in front of the most impenetrable blackness, an infinite abysm, and it was left immersed into an uncontrollable fear. This happened because the uncreated light of the spirit made the soul feel the intuition of the eternal death and of its existence as much as of any other created thing after a Mahamantara, a super great year of Creator God's manifestation. 11. It dealt with 3 concepts: the principle of occupation, the principle of enclosure, and the principle of the wall. 12. The wisdom would free the spirit in the origin and would make it more powerful than the Creator God, but, in this world, where the spirit is chained to the man-animal, the Creator God's cult would dominate the wisdom. 13. Everything that exists in this world is just a gross imitation of the things that exist in the true world. 14. Just as the alchemist stirs lead, so would the members of the chosen family tirelessly go through the tests put by their ancestors, until someday, one of them, by turning 1,000 times round a circle under other heavens, manages to fulfill the family mission, thus purifying his astral blood. A transmutation would therefore take place that would make it possible for him to reverse the involution of the Kali Yuga or the Dark Age, to return to the origin and to acquire the wisdom again. 15. The great chief of the Hyperborean spirits, Lucifer, the one who defies the power of the Creator God's illusion with the power of wisdom, the messenger of the unknowable God, the true Christos of the uncreated light. 16. They kept the sacred alphabet of 13 plus 3 runners, which were represented by 16 signs, composed of straight lines, and to which they associated a sound of their common used language. Thus, 13 consonants and 3 vowels were available. 17. Its fire would be placed in the man's heart and it would transmute him. And this fire, at first extremely warm, would finally become colder than ice, and such cold fire would produce human nature's mutation. 18. The infinite blackness offered by goddess Perina's caliber death, in which all created light hopelessly turns off, can reflect that something that is the uncreated spirit, and the reflection of the spirit in the infinite blackness of caliber death is the naked truth of oneself. Before the infinite blackness, the created life dies of fear and the spirit finds itself. That is why, if the chosen one, after the reunion, gets life back, he will be the bearer of a sign of death that will leave his heart forever frozen. The soul will not be able to avoid being subjugated by the stone seed of oneself, that grows and develops at its expense, and transmutes the chosen one into a Hyperborean initiate, a man of stone, a wise warrior. As a man of stone, the resurrected chosen one will have a heart of ice and will exhibit an absolute courage. He will be able to unreservedly love the woman of flesh, but she will no longer be able to turn on the hot fire of the animal passion in his heart. So, in the woman of flesh, he will search for the one who possesses, like goddess Perina, both a soul and an uncreated spirit, and who is capable of revealing, in her infinite blackness, the naked truth of oneself. He will love her, the caliber woman, with the cold fire of the Hyperborean race. And the caliber woman will answer with the frozen aiult of Perina's caliber death. 19. The contemplation of oneself, which is a reflection of the eternal spirit, is experienced in a unique instant that cannot be seized by the time of creation. The chosen ones that reach Perina's caliber death will never be able to answer that question. The experience of eternity is indescribable. 20. A man of stone, the one who has come back from death, he who in death was loved with Perina's caliber cold fire and now keeps memory of aiult. He who has felt, beyond the love of life, the aiult of caliber death, that is to say, the no death of caliber death, and now has been immortalized as the son of death. 21. The man of stone shall only act, he shall listen in silence to the voice of the cold fire and shall act, and his act will express the ultimate spiritual courage. Whatever he does, his act will be founded upon the absolute basis of oneself, beyond good and evil, and no judgment or punishment coming from the world of deceit will affect him. Neither will any variation of the great deceit, not even the hot fire of animal passion, could drag him back to the dream of life. Wise and brave as a god, the man of stone will fight only if necessary, and will wait quietly for the final battle. He will long for the origin and will be moved by the nostalgia for the aiult of the goddess. He will look for his original partner in the caliber woman and, if he finds her, He will love her with the cold fire of oneself, and she will embrace him with the uncreated light of her eternal spirit, which will be infinite blackness for the created soul. 22. On earth, the spirit had been chained to the man-animal so that its willpower accelerated the evolution of his psychic structure. This enchainment was so strong, and so deep was the spirit submerged in the animic nature of the man-animal that, forgetting all about its origin, it believed it was a product of nature and of the powers of the matter, that is, a creation of the gods. 23. Newton comes to free the spirit of man from his prison in the world of the Creator God. The spirit is uncreated, namely, it has not been created by the Creator God, and, therefore, nothing that takes place here can essentially denigrate the spirit, and most certainly nothing can ethically affect the spirit. The spirit is innocent and pure in the eternity of the origin. Hence, Newton asserts that the Hyperborean spirit belonging as it does to a race of warriors can only manifest an attitude of essential hostility towards the world of the Creator God, can only rebel against the material order, can only doubt about the reality of the world that the great deceit constitutes, can only reject as false or as an enemy everything that is not the product of itself, that is, of the spirit. And it can only pursue with wisdom just one unique purpose, leaving the world of the Creator God where it is a slave, and returning to the unknowable world where it will be a god once again. On the other hand, Jesus Christ comes to save the soul of man from sin, from the offense against the Creator God's law. The soul is created by the Creator God and it must blindly obey its Father's law. 24. Hence, Jesus Christ asserts that the man's soul, the Creator God's most perfect creature, must only manifest an attitude of essential love towards the world of the Creator God. It must only accept its place within the material order with resignation. It must only believe in the reality of this world. It must only accept as true and friendly what has been proven to come in the name of the Creator God, and it must pursue just one unique purpose with wisdom, to remain in the world of the Creator God as a sheep gazed by Jesus Christ or by the priests that represent him. To be a god or a sheep, that is the question. 25. Like Gnostics and Manichaeans before, like Cathars and Albigensians later on, they will only accept part of the Gospels, particularly John's, and they will utterly reject the Old Testament. This is what they argued. The Jewish God was no other than Jehovah Satan, an aspect or face of the one God, creator of the material universe. The account of the creation of the material universe is narrated in the Genesis, where the uncreated and eternal spirit would be enslaved. The created universe is, therefore, intrinsically malignant for the uncreated spirit. The spirit only gives value to the true world where it comes from. 26. Another one is the Church of Christos, or just the Church, to which the lords of Tharsis and the Circulus Dominicanis belonged long before, and to which many of those who are for the spirit and against the powers of matter, for Christos light and against Jehovah Satan, belong. One is the Church of treason against the spirit of man, and the other is the Church of liberation of the spirit of man. One is the Church of the demon of the immortal soul, and the other is the Church of the God of the eternal spirit. 27. The 13 plus 3 runic signs of the sacred alphabet were carved on the Irminsul column, where the stone of Venus was embedded in its center, in remembrance of Wathin's unique eye that looked at the world of the great deceit from the tree of terror. 28. The spirit is essentially a warrior. Consequently, the noble and warrior castes are spiritually superior to priestly castes. 29. What Cathars were actually acquainted with was the Hyperborean wisdom, which they taught by means of symbols taken from Mazdaism, Zervanism, Gnosticism, Judeo-Christianism, etc. So, they preached that good was of an absolute spiritual nature and was completely out of this world. The spirit was eternal and uncreated, and it came from the origin of good. On the contrary, evil was by nature all that was material and created. The world of matter, where the man-animal inhabits, was intrinsically malicious. The world had been created by Jehovah Satan, a demonical demiurge. Therefore, they rejected the Bible as the word of Satan, and they particularly repudiated the Genesis where the creation of the world by the demon was narrated. The Roman Church, that accepted the Bible, was then the synagogue of Satan, the dwelling of the demon. The man-animal created by Satan had two natures, the material body and the soul. The uncreated spirit had been attached to both of them, and since then remained prisoner of the matter. The spirit, incapable of liberating itself, dwelled in the soul, and the soul gave life to the material body that was immersed in the evil of the material world. The spirit thus found itself sunk in hell, condemned to the pain and suffering imposed to the man-animal by Jehovah Satan. 30. It was the time for the spiritual awakening and the material renouncement. It was the time for clearly distinguishing between the whole of the spirit and the nothingness of the matter. 31. Profoundly spiritual men would be needed. Men who had the Hyperborean wisdom and were transmuted due to the memory of the origin, the revelation of the naked truth of oneself. More precisely, men of stone would be needed. 32. To oppose the Hyperborean wisdom against the one-God cult. 33. In every Hyperborean initiate, the spirit had to dominate the soul. 34. The man will lose his virility and will become softer. He will be like a woman, even when he can procreate. His determination to fight will be weakened by a growing effeminacy that will spread to all mankind. Perplexed. Many people will mistake sodomite moral for a product of high civilization. But what will actually happen is that the heart will control the mind and will weaken the will. At the end, everybody will end up accepting the synaphysic way of life, and the man will replace the eagle with the dove, war with peace, and the heroic risk with the passive comfort. 35. Time is the constant flow of the one's consciousness. Between the beginning and the end of time is creation, and at the end of time is the perfection of the soul as stone of fire. It is YHVH's will that the soul reaches the final perfection according to Metatron's model. But now the soul cannot see the cold stone that lies deep inside itself. The soul cannot perceive it until it gets in the way, and becomes a stumbling stone for the soul, an insurmountable obstacle to reach the good of the final perfection. Without the seed of stone in the mud man's soul, there would have been neither evil nor hate against creation. The evolution would have taken place by the force of love for the Creator. The final perfection would have been ensured for all created soul. Now it will be impossible for the YHVH's plan to be fulfilled. 36. He had become a Hyperborean initiate, a potential enemy of the White Fraternity's plans. How did such heresy occur? Who initiated him in the Hyperborean wisdom? 37. Showing the papal tiara, replica of Dark Atlantis priest's Egyptian crown, wearing the white gown of the Levitical priests of Israel, on which the four-leaf clover of the Golan priests is embroidered in a stylized form as a Celtic cross. In his right hand he is holding the cross, symbol of the spiritual enchainment, and, in his left hand, St. Peter keys, symbol of the Kala chakra key with which gods treacherous to the spirit of man consummated the original treason. 38. My Lord knows and respects only the law of honor, that is the law of the Holy Spirit, of the true God's will. Nobody but your God Jehovah, who is a demon called Satan to whom you slavishly obey, can go against that law. 39. We, the eternal warriors of Christos Lucifer, will one day put an end to the chiefs of your chiefs, to the hidden hierarchy of supreme priests, who keep the uncreated spirit in the slavery of the created matter. 40. The self, expression of the spirit, appears deep inside the soul, without any possibility of heading towards the origin because it ignores its own situation, that there is a possible return towards the spirit's homeland. The self is usually lost without knowing it to be so, and is looking for the origin not knowing what it is looking for. The treacherous gods chained the self to the man-animal's soul so that the willpower resulting from the self's useless search would be used by the soul to evolve towards the final perfection. Within the animic subject, the self is unable to take control of the microcosms, unless it goes through the Hyperborean initiation, which produces the effect of isolating the self from the soul by means of the uncreated runners. 41. A self that is devoid of any moral and of any dogma, indifferent to the deceits of the world but open to the memory of blood, will be able to march gallantly towards the origin, and there will be no force in the universe that could stop it. 42. He who knows the secrets of the mystery of Amort is a transmuted Hyperborean initiate, namely, an immortal man of stone. 43. The mystery of Amort is experienced in 7 different ways by man, and, precisely, that is the reason why the Hyperborean wisdom provides 7 initiatory ways of liberation. The way of liberation to be taken will depend on how the mystery of Amort has been gnostically perceived, and that is why it is usually said to be a way of the mutation or of the lightening, a dry way or path of the right hand, a humid way or path of the left hand, a way of the strategic opposition or a way of the warrior gnosis for the absolute orientation, etc. 44. To the men of stone Hyperborean initiates of the house of Tharsis,